Calling the roll. Toby Coates.
Present.
Eric Robinson.
Present.
Laura Palestrini, present. We have a quorum. Are there any public comments?
No one signed up.
We have before you the minutes from the last meeting, February 23rd, 2022. Are there any comments or changes or edits that are necessary?
I do not have the minutes.
They were emailed,
Oh. Okay.
I think, a couple of days ago. Do you want to look at mine?
No, go ahead.
I'd like to entertain a motion then to approve the minutes. I'm going to have to make that motion, I think, because Eric, you were there, weren't you?
Eric was not at the last
Oh,
one.
that's right, that's right.
I was just about to ask,
I'm thinking of the 22nd of last year now. Okay.
is it appropriate if I abstain from the last one, or is that still, okay?
I think you can make the motion.
Well, I didn't want to do that or vote because I wasn't.
All right, Laura will make the motion. Can we get a second?
Yeah, I don't have the minutes, but I'll second it.
Okay. Do you have any, do you want to wait for comments or?
No.
All those in favor then? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Abstention.
I'm abstaining. Waiting for you to call.
That's okay.
If that's illustrating, we are recording the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Do we need to do the roll call and everything then?
No, nobody online, but we are recording just for the purposes of the record.
Yeah, I think so.
I emailed about them.
One of the ones I sent to approve.
It was included in the invitation to it too.
Oh. I got it.
Well, the minutes have passed, then why don't we move on then to the FY24 budget presentation, and I will pass it over there to Lori, Ms. Lori Lyons.
Okay, this evening, we're going to start out with the enterprise funds. And I just wanted to remind you that the enterprise funds are used to account for operations that are financed and operated in a manner similar to private business enterprises, where the intent is that the costs of providing the goods or services to the public on a continuing basis be financed or recovered primarily through user charges. So we're going to start out this evening with the water fund. And if any of you have not met Mark before, this is Mark Montgomery. He's our supervisor of utilities, and he's here to provide moral support, I think.
Pick me up too,
Okay.
And we don't have any fun slides this time. I made a pun actually using the water department, saying that the general fund was fluid, very fluid, which was a more appropriate term for the enterprise funds. However, this evening we're just going to delve right in. So as you know, our community is growing, and so therefore our water fund revenues are reflective of adding new homes to the community, as well as the ordinance stipulated CPI increase for water and sewer rates at the rate of 7%. So I know that sounds really quite extreme, but I just wanted to give a quick illustration of how that works out. So what I did this evening is take our largest committee members' water usage. So we all can probably guess who our largest budget committee member who uses the most water.
I would know that for sure.
So that individual in the month of January 2023 utilized 13,000 gallons of water in the 2-month billing cycle. The utility bill,
Who is it? It's either him or me.
It's not me.
yeah, Laura uses 1.
Yeah.
Eric uses 13, and I think you were probably at like 6 or 7.
Wait,
You're the big user.
Family.
Eric's wife who does laundry
Every day.
Every-
Every morning that drives.
Lots of dishes,
Yeah.
lots of, yeah.
We
you've got
appreciate it.
children, so,
You're
yes,
Well, I try to keep the village running.
With the 7% increase, this will, so I've got January 2023 on the board. This is not part of your handout. But Eric's bill in January 2023 was $217.62. And in July 2023, with the proposed, actually ordinance required CPI index change, the increase will be $5.20 extra for water, $6.50 extra for sewer. And then you will see this evening when I get to the garbage section, I'm proposing an 82-cent increase in garbage collection fees. So the total amount for the billing cycle would be $12.52 or $6.26 additional per month.
And that with the refuge, that is according to the contract, it increases each year.
That's correct. So what I've done is added the contract increase into this fee, plus kept the village piece of an increase in there as well. Administrative piece, right? So administrative, is there a problem?
No.
Okay. The administrative piece includes the printing, postage, and then administrative personnel charges as well. Any questions with respect to that? Yes,
You're showing a dollar amount, and you may have said it, and I'm sorry if I missed it. What's the percentage increase on water and sewer?
7%. That's equal to the CPI index for Chicago, Naperville, and Elgin area.
Right, is it always whatever the CPI is, we've always increased by that rate?
That's correct.
And so just because we're in extreme high inflation right now, we're getting a higher percentage increase than probably any other year we've ever done, correct?
That is accurate. This is the highest percentage.
Usually
Yes.
it's what, 2 to 3?
It varies a great deal. Sometimes the CP index actually goes down, occasionally, which may be the case, in the very near future. But 1.3, I think, I read someplace recently, it had to do with bond indexes, and I believe that they were using just slightly over 2%, like kind of as a melded average over several years,
Okay, but 7 is an extreme compared to previous years.
without a doubt. And then just to add some additional whim to this. At many McDonald's, you can actually get a 32-ounce drink for $1, which would be.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well, no, I know, but not anymore. Down in Hampshire McDonald's, which is $1.69. So the cost per gallon is $4 for just, somebody that gets it for $1, or $6.67 for a McDonald's soft drink, which is like $6,000 per 1,000 gallons, whereas the village of Hampshire is much less than that. So we're asking for $12.72 for a combined water and sewer rate for per 1,000 gallons. And then if you were to buy a bottle of Dasani at McDonald's, it's like $7,000 per 1,000 gallons. Just kind of some interesting statistics thrown in there. Sorry, we're off track already.
Nope. All right, helps us understand.
With respect to water fund revenues, we are transferring $110,000 to cover capital improvements expenses that are included in the operating budget. And that specifically, I guess if you wanted to put it on one particular item, we do intend to replace the media at well number 9 this year. So that's about $114,000. We'll get into the expenses in just a second. But that $110,000 would be reflective of that capital improvement.
And that media filter is how many years past its life?
They say to do them every 10 years and we're at 20 something.
Yeah.
The water sales, does that include the 2 capital fees?
It does not. No, we'll get to that in a couple minutes.
And again, if I missed it, I apologize. If I look at 2022, 2023 versus this coming year's budget for sales, where you're proposing a 7% increase,
Yeah, if you look
but
at,
yet the total budget is less.
yes, if you, so the water, my water budget and my sewer budget are both over. And so I built the budget this year, based on our projected revenue for this year, rather than on the budget number.
Gotcha.
So if you look at the difference, my 1,031,000 compared to 1,152,000. So I was over.
Gotcha.
Any questions before I move to the expense side of things? A little bigger for you?
Thank you.
Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Great. Are the fiscal years off on the top of this?
The middle 2 columns are, yes, I apologize.
The five.
Actually, the end 3.
Okay.
Let me fix that for you.
I was just,
Sorry.
no, it's okay, just so on, you don't have to fix it right now, I just wanted to make sure that,
The same thing.
yeah.
The numbers should be the same.
We have our new Tyler budgeting software. We won't have to worry about all the spreadsheets.
All right. With respect to wages and benefits, we are looking at a 23.5% increase. Some of the, so let me tell you what we've done a little bit differently in the budget with respect to personnel. In prior years, we had assigned people to a particular department, with the exception of Mark and maybe one other individual who split their time about 50-50 between water and sewer. Because there is much more crossover. So Mark and his foreman is obviously working in both sections since he's supervising other, other employees. We have now split everybody 50-50. So we're not necessarily looking at apples to apples here in this particular situation, because water and sewer personnel for the first time are being split 50-50. Do you have any questions about that?
When I do a quick jump over then to the others, to the sewer, then I'm looking to see if that's also then an increase.
It is. So we did include wage increases. I think we talked about that at the last meeting, that those increases were effective January 1st. And then, so the only people that are being picked up as for increases in this particular time frame. So all the increases have taken place from January 1, which will be effective through 12/30, well, approximately 12/31. It's actually January 7th or January 8th through January 7th. But the only increase that's reflected other than those planned increases is the increase for Mark that did not get an increase in January.
So if you just to remind you from the last meeting, in January, we had some employees that were considering leaving, had offers in other communities. So we, for many years, have been talking about steps in the public works department. So we did create those steps in January. And after speaking with Mike, we made some changes then, and that's reflected here. So that's why that's substantially higher.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay.
And instead of a May 1st increase that some of us will get for cost of living, they won't get anything until next January.
Thank you.
Any questions regarding wages and benefits?
I'd just like to add one thing to that. Along with that, the STEP program, we've also implemented performance reviews in all the departments now, and we're building work plans to improve training for employees. And you'll be getting a presentation on that in the next couple of months. But Mark and Lori and Josh have been a big part of that.
Under contractual services, the budget for this year was, for maintenance equipment was 106, and the projection is 48. Is some of that rolling over into the 209 for next year? Or?
So you will see that in many cases in this particular budget, we did swapping of expenses. So while we had planned to do some maintenance on the equipment, we've experienced HVAC problems, so we've had to expend in that area. Also, we did get the channel grinder that you approved recently. That will be expended out of this fiscal year budget. So we kind of do some trading in the overall budget, trying not to go over.
I thought you said that for these funds, the revenues generated for these funds have to be spent on the expenses for these funds.
That's correct.
So how did we move expenses of these funds out to, or if I'm hearing you right, like HVAC, but our building is way under what was budgeted as well. So I'm not saying, like, almost all the numbers are pretty far under. Utilities was way under, maintenance equipment is way under, utility system is way under, maintenance building is way under for expenses. So where was it swapped out of those areas into something else?
So, gosh.
I just didn't know if some of that delta is what's causing a 209 carryover into the next budget year, that we didn't get the expense in the fiscal year when you thought we were going to get it, so it moves next.
So I think it's probably going to be important, maybe I know for sure that not all of the projected expenditures for this fiscal year have been included in the projected expenses. So which sounds kind of crazy, but like the channel grinder does not appear on here yet.
That's not in the 185 under the sewer for
Well,
equipment?
yes, that is accurate. Yes, I'm sorry. So we do balance the water and sewer funds all as one
Right.
fund. Yeah,
Because the fees all are charged on one.
yes, right. So they're kind of combined together, if you will. But so we've done some expenses swapping. Mark, do you want to talk about some of those that we've done?
We've had a poor year at the wastewater treatment plant with equipment breakdowns, just really bad luck. She mentioned the HVAC, the units, just one thing after another, and nothing's cheap in fixing those.
There's no need to have to look around you. Yes, thank you.
Our screen process broke down. We've had breakdowns in the filter building. Just a host of problems that we've had to call in and have it fixed.
So if you're asking if some of those things have been deferred and then pushed off to the next year, that's accurate as well.
We had problems with our return activated sludge pumps, and we found out it was the check valves, and so we changed out all 5 because they were just deteriorated. When we took them apart, we thought maybe there was rags in them because we have no primary treatment right now. Our screening process has been down for months, so it sends rags to the plant. We took them apart and they were just corroded to nothing. So we changed them out, all 5 valves.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't want to
No,
ask so many
go ahead.
questions. I was just gonna say, I think with all that great work that's going on, I would have seen the projected to be higher than budgeted that there were a lot of things you didn't anticipate coming in that we did have to do, but the reason I had asked if things were being deferred to next year is because actually in all cases, you're way under budget of what was the projected versus budget. And next year's budget in some of these areas, they're asking for even more than what was budgeted this year. So that's why I wasn't sure, like,
Right.
are there major things that you were like, I thought it was gonna be this year, it's not gonna be this year, it's actually pushed to next year?
Yes, then we moved quite a bit over to this next year.
Some of it's just that time to take the time to get the quotes and do all the things to implement it.
Yeah.
We probably had a more aggressive spending plan this year than we've ever had, right?
And then things that broke down that I didn't,
That we had planned on.
yeah.
Okay, continue.
Were you interested in, getting some details on what in the equipment area would you project to expend in this 209,000?
Yes. Because we're doubling that. And that's maintenance of, not new. Correct?
Yes. With the exception, I guess, of the media replacement, which it's new media, but it's really, considered a repair of the same equipment that's inside the plant.
Okay.
A little bit.
Oh, sorry, yes. Whoa, okay. So, while exchanging the media, there will also be some brine tank repairs at both drinking water treatment plants. Mark expects to have some labor done on the brine system. Both plumbing and then programming. There are some general plumbing expenses in here, along with continuing SCADA programming. And then, just a couple other minor items that are included. See if I can get this all on one page for you. Is that helpful?
None of those were in this year's then.
The top two were,
Top,
yeah, we didn't get to those.
because we had to do other things that came up.
Yeah, I slowed down. I got a little nervous. There was a lot of spending there for a while, just bizarre things breaking down, had it fixed.
Yeah.
So I don't consider this any type of emergency. It needs some attention, especially while nine's getting pretty old.
Mhm.
It's a brine tank where they bring a big semi truck and dump the brine in, the salt into, and then they mix brine out of it, and those tanks can get really boogered up. The under drainage, piping and that
Mhm.
needs some attention.
Mhm.
We did a similar project at well 7 a few years ago.
Questions? All right, we're gonna go back to contractual services. By far, the equipment maintenance is the largest percentage of increase in this particular category.
Mhm.
Are there any questions that you'd like to delve into in a particular other area of this particular section?
Just like highlight the column you're on.
This is the one that has the.
Utility system actually dropped.
So that's actually the electricity that that we're paying for to operate the equipment. And it's kind of interesting because we are going out for bid, so I may be way off on this, I hope not. But our electrical contract is up, I believe, in the month of May.
It's a 3-year. Go on.
Was it May or August? It might be
We
August.
just got the information for the online auction. I think it's coming up in August.
So we're projected at 80,151 for this year, but we had budgeted the 147, and we're just slightly going up then to what we're spending this year to the 94,766.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about utilities themselves.
Okay, maintenance utility system, sorry.
Got you. Okay,
Which one are you? You got
Page 3.
Oh, that's where, okay. I don't know which one there. Okay. I see it.
Under contractual services,
maintenance utility system.
47,94.
yeah,
4160.
Yes,
Talking about.
okay. So that's not electricity then?
that's not electricity, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I will.
So Mark, is there, like, this is one of those areas, this one and the equipment one, so this one, we stand utility system. Where 67,000, projected 67,000 under budget. Is there something that you wanted to have done in the budget this year that didn't get done that would move over to the next fiscal year? And does the 94 help cover that?
Yeah, there's a few things that moved over. The marine brakes, of course, we've had very few this year, but that's always a common one to have in there. I'd have to look at last year's screen to.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if we're that far under, if you didn't need it, great, but if it was, we gotta postpone a project till next fiscal, does that then change the ask of the 94?
I think another big one is having the surge suppression moved to equipment.
That was, I think, at least some surge suppression was in the budget and did not get done
Right,
this year.
that didn't get done
And now it's being moved from utility to equipment.
this year, yes. That was 17 apiece for Tam's booster pump station and Tuscany booster pump station.
so what do we move it to then?
We moved it to equipment because it's really not maintenance. It's brand new equipment. Could be new surge suppression. Mark also plans to have 4 new hydrants replaced. So in other words, a new hydrant put in the place of an old one. And then we will be conducting a leak detection survey like we do about every other year.
Mark, you said these are maybe the last 4, the oldest hydrants, right?
We're gonna reassess the system when we do the hydrant flushing. We did, over the last 2 years, 8 hydrants changed out that were just in really bad shape. And there's 2 more out there. This actually should say 2 hydrants on there. That's an error. But we're planning on putting 2 more in this year.
And they're about 12K each. I think trustee Coz at the last meeting talked about just how much work goes into that.
Yeah, it's,
We actually had a picture at the last meeting.
Mhm.
Person in the hole.
And that's for next year. You want the 24 in there. Lori, on the next page, the full outlay for fire hydrants only has 2K requested.
If you go back to, I think it's meters and equipment section.
Yeah, there's meters and equipment, right below that's fire hydrants. There's only 2K requested in that.
that's just for general parts. That 24K should cover hydrants and installing them.
So is that under which budget line would that be included?
That's in the maintenance utility system. That $24,000 is the labor and the actual hydrants themselves.
So what would we put under the fire hydrants?
Those are miscellaneous parts.
Oh. Okay.
So it's kind of
in-house, we're able to break down hydrants when they're malfunctioning and rebuild them in the field. This is for hydrants that are just beyond hope. They're very old. A lot of them don't have auxiliary valves, so we have to shut the whole street down to get them out of there.
That's my clarification is 2 capital purchases for 24,000 for new hydrants and then $2,000 just for parts to repair and rebuild hydrants.
And the way that it's been done like this for years, when it says maintenance equipment, that is equipment that's like at a facility. Versus if you see maintenance utility system, those are things that are outside, so outside of a physical building. So it's not inside a drinking water treatment plant. It's not at a booster pump location. It's someplace out in the field. Is that accurate?
I've always been told it was, this particular one was anything outside of a drinking water treatment plant.
Okay.
So the towers, the booster pump stations would all be included with that. I was taught once upon a time.
Just wait until we have our new system. We're gonna throw it way out of whack because we're going to be changing our systems a little bit as far as how we're going to be accounting for things with respect to capital and maintenance and those types of things. And it's not gonna matter if it's at the plant or it's outside of, a physical location. If it's maintenance, it's maintenance. If it's capital, it's capital.
Can I swing to the previous page for engineering services?
Yes.
It's just because, we had budgeted 178 spent, which projected 228, and now we're going down to 30,000.
Yeah, so what's happened in some of this, and it's going to get rearranged, I promise you. Much of the engineering services to do both the north-south water main connection, the State Street streetscape improvements, and the Route 72 and State and 72 engineering for the utility system stuff has been charged directly to the operating fund here.
Okay. So that's what, and all of those are now done, for the engineering part of it then.
Yes.
So we have nothing then on the books, and that's why we've just got a nominal.
Right. Right.
The operating, the general fund?
Hmm.
What's the operating? To this?
To this operating.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha, okay.
So it's in the right section. It's just, it needs to be reallocated to essentially the capital fund where those things were meant to be expended into.
This is the first year we're really trying to capture all the engineering costs in the budget. Past to budgeted for the projects, and a lot of times the preliminary engineering is never budgeted.
Same for some of the bids that come in. I forget it. Okay. Anybody else have questions then? So far, Judy. Continue then.
The next section is commodities, and there's a simple 4% increase in the expenditures being looked at here. Nothing is really a high ticket item except for operating supplies, and that includes the chemicals that's used to treat the water.
So we're actually asking for less.
Well, we're asking less than the budget was last year, so, but Mark provided those numbers to me, so I'll refer to him.
I'll always take anything that's less. So I just want to make sure then with the increases of costs that sufficiently covers what's going to be needed.
And then our next category is other expense. This includes the debt associated with bonds that were issued and then refunded. Fiscal year 24 is the last of the bond that includes the water fund, so that will be rolling off. And then we do charge administrative services to the water and sewer funds. And we have increased the contingency, as you see, quite a bit. So what we've done there is, let me go to that particular supporting tab. Like Mark explained, we have experienced several failures, especially at the wastewater treatment plant. But this year, we have identified some things for contingency. So in other words, if a scrubber motor goes down, we've got $6,000 that, you know, we've kind of moved away from actual expecting to have it expended to the contingency fund. And then there's a high service pump motor rehab in here. Lead service lines is actually an engineering expense. We're not sure exactly when we will have to go to the next phase of our lead service line evaluation. So that's in here, as well as 55,000 for things that, you know, may come up that were unplanned. So we're trying to kind of maybe account for some of the contingencies that we may have in the future. Any questions with respect to that? We just talked about meters and equipment. That includes both the purchase of residential meters for new home construction, as well as a couple of commercial meters that will be either sold for new buildings or used as replacements to try to enhance our measurability on the water side, and then fire hydrants. So when we come to the bottom line, we have revenue of $1,259,999, expenses of $1,256,645, for revenue in excess of expenses in the amount of $3,354. Any questions?
This is just a formula that adds it down the rows, right? Right.
Yes. Mhm.
On the, I think I'd asked this, the water sales does not include the capital fees.
Correct.
And in your projected in your 8-month, there's nothing inputted for WS improvement charge.
Yes, so we will evaluate at the end of the year whether or not we actually need to transfer money to for, you know, to make this fund balance. So if it's required, we will do it. If not, we will not.
But I thought that fee, because it's collected for this, has to stay in this fund.
That is not the actual revenue. That is a transfer from a capital fund within the water fund. So when we're going to do water, sewer, garbage, and then we'll go to the other funds that are related to that. So I have a whole, if you go to Fund 28, which I'll tell you what page that's on.
Okay, so
I
that's,
think there's just
We
actually.
just haven't gotten to it yet.
Right.
I don't think we want to bring all the other, but I
No,
think
it's
just clarify between water and sewer, right?
that's what I was talking about, the extra fee that we charge on the water bill. So it sounds like that income line, that revenue line is only utilized when you need to bring some over from the capital to balance.
correct.
So that revenue goes into another.
It's into a different fund.
Okay, so in this budget, then, if I'm reading it right, you had budgeted that we would need to transfer 174,000 to budget.
That's
or
correct.
to balance, but you're saying that if I look at this, then we're actually projected to end 65,000 positive in this water fund without needing to transfer the 175.
That's correct.
So we're actually 230 under where we thought our expenses would be.
But we're not at the end of the year.
Well, that I'm going off the projected.
Yeah, but as we've explained before, the projected is only so good as it can be at this point. There's a lot of timing issues that we can't really forecast yet.
Okay.
Are you prepared to go to the sewer fund?
I am.
Yeah, there.
Okay. With respect to the sewer fund, again, the revenue is not going to, the budget does not meet the 2023 budget expectations. So I built off of our projected revenue for 2023 rather than the budget. It does include additional amounts for new homes that are being constructed, and as well as the 7% increase in the sewer charge. In this case, it looks like we're going to need to move $225,715 of water and sewer improvement fee to cover plant trans voltage suppression, and then an additional $51,000. It shows as miscellaneous income, but I wanted to separate it so that you would be able to see that for lift station surge suppression and then manhole repairs. Any
So,
more?
like the water fund, that's transferred from the capital.
Those are both transfers, right?
And that's the 51K?
Both the 51 and the 225, both are transfers. Any questions with respect to revenue?
And why would you split those up?
Just so that you could see it.
Oh,
Are you ready to move on? Okay. Move on then to wages and benefits.
Okay, so again, this reflects a 50-50 split of the employees between water and sewer. Sewer expenses are going to be greater than both, obviously, the projected amount and last year's budget because of the addition of people in this area. We did go right down the board too. I don't think I explained that in the other section with respect to all benefits. So the health insurance is split and actually looks like it's going down here when it's not really going down. It's just split between the two departments. Any questions with respect to this? Okay. Okay, on to contractual services. You will see here that maintenance equipment is one of our large ticket items. We're requesting less than last year, but you will also note that we have overexpended that particular line item in this, or expect to in this particular fiscal year. One of the other line items that's very large is engineering services. And particulars on that one, let's just look at that one really quick.
And it's a 417% increase.
Mhm.
Can we go back really quick to the
Sure.
building,
Yes.
the very top one?
Mhm.
We're projected at a 145% increase. Can you tell
Yeah.
me more about that?
Yeah, so what's included in here are some lighting upgrades at the Harmony Pump Station, which is right at the head of the wastewater treatment plant. We've got some HVAC issues there, some of which will be resolved this fiscal year and others that are being held over until next year. In two of the buildings, we've moved off some of the stuff to the contingency fund, which are those items that are held off to the side in column E, if you're looking at the screen. And then we have some other repairs, all for items within the buildings at the wastewater treatment plant.
Thanks.
while we're on this page, one question as well, and this kind of goes back to similar to the water question under maintenance utility system. We budgeted 101, we're projected at 8, and we're budgeting based off that projection even less for next year. So was there a project or an estimated need of 83K that we just didn't end up needing and it doesn't go over to the next fiscal?
Which one is that, Lori?
That's the maintenance utility system. So we budgeted 101,943.
Touch that one.
The projected is 8,385, which, you know, if next year was a little higher than 101, I could see it just transferred over, but we're actually now requesting less than what the projected was for this year. So I'm just curious if there was a project that had been estimated or thought could be done and it just got,
Right off,
didn't need to be done.
right off, I see the surge suppression got moved to equipment,
How much was that?
60,000. So that wasn't that column last budget year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe you're correct.
Lift station pump repair got moved to contingency. That would have been, I'm guessing it was 23,000.
Okay. So it's not that things didn't get done that you need to have done next year. It looks like just accounting wise, we moved them into different funds than what they were originally budgeted under.
Right. Some of it's hard to know what to do with because, you know, I have 6 lift stations with pumps. Is one of them gonna break down and need service? We haven't in some time, but
That's why I was just wondering like that. I normally would say bravo, we're way under on that one, but when then the next year's budget is even less than what was listed here for this year, I'd hate for you to get into one of those situations next year and then have it be like, well, no budget.
I put everything in there I can think of.
Okay. Perfect.
Why do we move them from different, line items? Because it does make it hard to kind of keep track of where things are going.
Yeah, that's probably my fault.
You were trying to clean some things up.
Yeah, I'm really trying to clean things up.
Okay.
We're gonna make a lot of changes for next year, so
Okay,
it's gonna be kind of a retraining type of
okay.
situation for all of the department heads.
We started to
Mark,
organize the general code, the general ledger with the proper codes.
Uh-huh.
New system, and that means a lot of changes.
Yeah. I expected it, it just causes some questions because we're not sure. And
absolutely.
it's harder to review because you got to go back so many pages to look at something else to see, so,
Understood.
okay. But I'm glad you're cleaning it up and it's gonna be more workable when you're done with that, so.
Is having the north-south water connection, and I guess I'm ignorant, the whole thing. I guess we removed the lift station, correct?
We removed the drinking water treatment plant and the well.
Okay, so is that like having a positive impact on the budget here now that we've done it? Or would you say not?
I think it's,
Or will it?
I think Mark will tell you it's been,
Sleeps
a
better.
huge, yeah, a
Well,
huge
yeah, I know that.
relief to mental toll.
Okay,
Because of redundancy. I don't think it's really, you mean to save a nominal amount of money on electricity and those types of things,
Okay.
but,
well, I know you guys are constantly worried about that.
Well, 7 was due for a 1 million plus fix
Yeah.
if we kept it running.
I was just gonna add, in the first capital improvement plan that we did, there were several repairs planned for that treatment plant that we ended up not having to do because we just demolished it.
Okay.
So in that sense, it did save money in the long run.
We limped that right to the end. Oh, my.
And then another 2 years after that.
Yeah.
you'll recall, like, we wanted to do the median replacement at that treatment
Yes.
plant, and,
Put it off for 2 years.
yeah, we kind of crossed our fingers and like Mark said, he was able to limp it through, so.
Well, and that's why I asked. Thank you.
It's running great. That new station we put in working wonderfully. We planned it out on how that water fills and empties, and it's just working great.
Now, the Higgins Road lift station is gonna become very important in the future, because all this north development, the
Yes.
light properties and everything north, all comes through that lift station eventually.
Okay.
So that lift station is gonna have to be upgraded. That'll be part of our, it may be one of the development requirements. when we get into that,
Okay.
when they resubmit. But we're also gonna have to include that, that'll be reviewed in our utilities master plan. If we have a meeting tomorrow, Friday, about that.
Next.
I just thought we'd go to, the engineering line item, which is like 4,000% greater than before. So have we discussed the NERC? NERC, does that ring a bell?
Steve went through that at the board meeting, but we should go through it again now. It's
Yeah.
a pretty big deal.
So do you want to talk about that briefly, Mark, or
Yeah,
it's the darndest thing?
it's the darndest thing. The
Let's start
EPA,
with the state mandate.
it's a state mandate, and we're made to see what our impact is on the watershed holistically. So the river that we dump into goes for many, many miles, and we have to show what we are doing holistically to this watershed.
When are they observing? What's the chemical?
The nutrients, the big one is phosphorus. They want to see what we're doing with phosphorus. And it's frustrating for an operator like me. Our plant does very well. We spent $20 million 15 years ago to address this. At that time, we were ahead of the curve. Now they're coming back and saying, you know, do a study on what you're doing to the creek, when we're basically virtually putting out zero into the creek. We chose this approach to go it alone instead of going, because you can go in with bigger groups. The problem with that is we'd be lumped in with Rockford and a bunch of communities out that way. And then they get together and come up with the holistic impact on the watershed. And then whatever rules they come up with, we have to abide by, and then we have to upgrade our plant to meet those requirements. What we're trying to do with the help of EEI is show that, and we've hired a company to do a bunch of testing and put together a report. We're gonna show that we are doing nothing ahead of everybody.
So NERC stands for nutrient
Assessment.
Reduction plan.
reduction.
Yes, thank you.
Essentially what they do is make all of us who contribute to this watershed, test our phosphorus and see how much we're contributing to it, to see if it will lower the amount of phosphorus in the river or not. They don't know. They just want to find out. So we're gonna have to spend 300, how much in total?
153.
Yeah, $153,000, just to find out. And then when we do, they may tell us, okay, you have to go to zero phosphorus, or they may tell you, okay, I think it's 3 parts per million right now.
Our limit is 1 now.
Sorry, 1, and so we're well within their limit already. But they want to know, could we eliminate it altogether with this test? So they're doing this huge modeling to see if this will have any impact or not.
And it's statewide.
It's statewide
Okay.
for every water system, I believe. Some were required to do this previously, we're in the second
It's
group.
pretty much Midwest wide, because they're trying to reduce what the Midwest is putting in the Mississippi, because we're killing the Delta down in New Orleans. So pretty much everyone in the Midwest, Wisconsin and us are dealing with it.
Do we know if all the other communities around us, the smaller ones, are all meeting that mandate? I mean, just curious if you're.
We did some checking.
Colleagues in other areas.
Yeah, in fact, we talked up to EEI about what's the bare minimum we could do to meet the minimums. And there's really there's no shortcuts you can take. They're just real specific.
Everybody's pulling their hair out on this one.
Okay, no one's skipping it.
You
I mean,
can't.
like,
If you skip it, they're just gonna come in and say, zero discharge, upgrade your plant. So.
Okay.
To the EPA.
Hampshire releases to I think it's kind of important to follow it along too. So Hampshire releases to Hampshire Creek, which goes into either Coon Creek or Burlington Creek. I'm not sure. One of the two is first. And then it goes all the way up to Belvedere and goes to the Kishwaukee River. So, I mean, we're kind of out here by ourselves, whereas Huntley, goes the other direction, so it's not like you could even, join up with communities in this area to, like Mark said, to do, kind of a look at an overall situation.
Can I ask for just a frame of reference? Say we decide to choose to upgrade the plant, as you say, as the state says, well, no, upgrade your plant, what would that cost?
I have no idea.
No,
Millions.
millions?
Yeah,
Okay,
oh, yeah.
so this is 153,000 well spent.
We would argue it shouldn't be spent, but
Well-
it's better than the alternative.
Agreed, but yes, okay.
But all you have to do is say groundwater these days. There's a lot of examples out there, recent history that it's a lightning rod for a lot of people.
Is this 153 multi-use, multi-purpose, meaning we'll get the readout to meet the state mandate and what it would take to upgrade the plant to be at a zero, or would that end up, let's say the state came back and told everybody, no, you need to be at zero, like you said, right?
This has nothing to do with any upgrades. This is so we don't have to upgrade. We'll show them that what
So we just have to show we're within a threshold.
our intention is to show that we are having no impact on the watershed.
Okay,
Because this company that's coming in and doing the study, they're gonna take farm runoff, which is the big problem, and everything, and they're gonna show that we're not contributing any problems to the watershed. So we don't need any upgrades. That's the ultimate goal.
That's a good point. Mark, where does the phosphorus really come from?
Farmers runoff,
Farmers, chemicals in the fields.
and everybody knows it, but we are on the hook to them that they can mandate that we go out and study this, and then they have all this data.
To do what, say it's the farmers that we already know?
Then they'll just have data on how, it's a big problem that they're trying to
Okay,
tackle. And we have, you have all these little laboratories set up everywhere with NPDES permits, so they can tell us what to do. And they're doing it.
It's a lot easier to mandate to communities that we test our water systems than it is to mandate to farmers. Ready to move on?
Yep, any additional questions in the contractual services area?
Nope.
The next section is commodities. There really aren't any super large ticket items here. Again, operating supplies include chemicals for treating the wastewater. Any questions with respect to that?
Engineering services,
Oh, yeah, yep,
417% increase. We're projected at 34,374.
that's that NARP.
That's the NAR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any questions with respect to commodities? As noted in the next section, our IEPA loan, the final year will be 2024. So that'll be a nice amount to have available for other purposes, including upgrades to our system. We charge admin services to the sewer fund, just like we do water. So that's included in this section. Again, we have a contingency in there, and there are some notes to the side with respect to what's included. Lift station repairs, manhole rehab, and some additional HVAC.
so after this next fiscal year, 290,000 will be freed up for other uses. And we will no longer owe loans for the water treatment facility.
Right, so we're still paying on the first expansion to the wastewater treatment plant. That loan was over $3 million, I believe.
And that will be paid off.
and it'll be paid.
That frees how much debt service per year?
290 is what.
It's 129,000 and change each quarter, or each semi-annual, sorry.
Not including the interest. With the interest, it's 290 total, right? 145, almost 150. Look at this.
Oops. And then, the other, area here is equipment and vehicles. And this is where we capture, the upfit of the truck that was purchased this particular fiscal year that has not been, we don't expect to, have that expenditure, in this fiscal year to go along with the truck. But it includes the trans voltage surge suppression that we talked about at the beginning. $165,000 for the plants and approximately $60,000 for the lift station. Questions?
When we bought it, we already bought it. We've contracted for it, but we haven't paid for it.
So if, we just, you approved recently the upfit of this truck. So we paid for the cabin chassis. It was purchased through James Motors. And then, this is being done at Napide up in McHenry County. McHenry, is it actually in McHenry?
I actually don't know where it's at.
McHenry and Huntley.
It's not in Huntley. It's the former Adams equipment. I think it's in McHenry.
It's in McHenry.
Yeah. It's now owned by Napide, the company itself.
I know, I just got a pump it on there.
All right.
So, if there are no other questions, with respect to the sewer operating fund, sewer revenue is expected at $1,671,815, expenses at $1,671,673, for revenue in excess of expenses of $142. Are there any questions? All right, if there's no additional questions, I'd like to go to the garbage fund. Okay, a little bit bigger. So the revenue expenses for the garbage fund include the contractual obligation that the village has to Flood Brothers with respect to an increase in their rates. Our fees also include the growth expected from new homes in the village. We're looking at revenue of $696,020, and that's a 7% increase, which is reflective of the also of the garbage, or excuse me, the CPI index change. No, it's not. Sorry, it's just reflective of the growth and the increase in Flood Brothers contract. Sorry. We do have,
What is Flood Brothers increase this year?
I believe it was 3%.
Okay.
Which is still lower than the charges were with waste management.
Yeah, we're even with the garbage fees, we're at a level that's less than
The end
the
of waste management.
fiscal year 2020.
And it will be throughout the remainder of the contract.
Yeah, I remember that's right.
And
What are
the penalty is still less than what we were.
Penalties are if people do not pay their fees on time, they're charged a 10% penalty.
That's where we can increase. It's all part of the bill if they don't pay the water, sewer, garbage.
Yeah, so just like the penalty is 10%, and then when they do make payment, we allocate it based on the percentage of the payment that they're making to each of their pieces. So a penalty is is credited to all three funds when they do make that. And then, with respect to expenses, we do charge an admin expense fee for, personnel time here at Village Hall. And then, there's also postage and printing expenses, for sending out the bills. Any questions with respect to that?
Good. Anybody else? Okay.
The next one that we have is the water sewer capital improvement fund. So this is part of the water and sewer fund that will get combined together for audit reporting purposes. And Mr. Kelly, this is the $20 fee that you see on your utility bill.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay?
Yep.
So in this section, we're expecting revenue of $363,090. That's simply an increase due to the number of homes that are being charged for this. And then the transfers out reflect the $110,000 being sent to the water fund. We attributed that to the media exchange, and then $275,000 to the sewer fund, which was for search suppression.
On the projected,
Yes.
there's a total expense under expenses, but there's no line items under interest or principal.
And
And
Sorry,
then there's
yeah.
also a dollar amount in transfers, but when you go to the two different funds, there's zero projected for transfers.
Yes, so let me look at that. So you'll see $30,000 being transferred to a different capital improvement fund, which it's not in the water and sewer fund, but I'll explain that when we get there. And then, $115,739, I'll figure out what that's for. But yes, I know exactly what that was for, and we'll get to that in just like 1 second. The $30,000 is being transferred out of the water and sewer fund to aid the capital improvement fund, which is helping pay for the Tyler implementation. So that seems to be an appropriate use of water and sewer capital improvement funds to get us up and going for that purpose. And then the $115,000 you'll see in just 1 minute. Okay, not to the operating funds. Okay, all right. Any questions with respect to this?
You may not have it, you can give back to me
You're gonna ask about fund
another
balance.
day, how much that current fund balance is.
I will get that for you.
It's like you know me.
I knew it. Well, and this is a known use of surplus, if you will. Although if you look at the water and sewer funds, it does look like we do have a lot of surplus. Surplus is a little bit different in an enterprise fund. If you notice, we did not budget for depreciation. And if I did, you'd see that there's about, I'd say, $800,000 to $900,000 in each fund for depreciation. So, we're not budgeting for depreciation, but we're banking up on this capital improvement fund for some of these expenditures that'll come down the road. Does that make sense? Kind of? All right. The next fund is fund number 34. This is a capital construction fund, if you will. And we're on fund 34. I'm gonna just page through that. This fund is being currently used for the water connection, to record the expenses for the north-south water connection, as well as the Route 72 project. So our water and sewer expenses are in here. You will note that the engineering services that are included in this section, 34, it's in the first line of contractual services. That $248,000, the majority of that has already been expended. It's just, it's actually in the water and sewer operating funds. Just want to put that out. So for budgeting purposes for fiscal year 24, the only thing we have in here is we expect at least one tap-on fee that will be for the Freight Union building that is being constructed up in Hampshire Woods.
Are we expecting 570K more for construction?
Meaning,
Under expenses, we budgeted 1.1. Our projection is the current 8-month, which is 568.
yeah, so, yes and no. Some of those expenses actually, it depends on the fiscal year that they fall in. So I really do need to take a look at, the, expenses. We do have, amounts both due to, Kane County Excavating, and we also have amounts due to the state, for the Route 72 project. That'll probably go on for a couple of years, actually. It takes them a while to get all of their payments and invoices out to us.
So should we be budgeting anything then for next?
We probably
fiscal?
should. I will definitely take a look at that before we finalize the budget. Yep,
So right, but the way it is now, it's 0.
correct.
So no construction at all.
We will not be starting new construction, but I probably will likely change that line item to include any residual amounts that are owed on both of those projects that are incomplete, or I expect to be incomplete by 4/30.
On the tap-on fees.
Yep.
For revenues, $1,400. How much is it per house per tap?
So that is on a cash basis. That actually is reflective of a portion of the tap-on fee that was due from the Diekmans. They built a house on Harmony that was not in the village yet. They were allowed to be included in our water system. What do I want to say about that? They elected for an installment plan, so we allowed them to do that. They didn't read their agreement well, and so we put it on their water bill. We had a legal agreement with them because they were outside of the village, and they did not read the legal agreement, and so I plopped the water connection fee onto their water bill, and it was a surprise to them, I guess, so we allowed them to pay on installments.
So anywhere on the revenue, on the water construction fund, or somewhere in here, is there tap fees for like Tam's Farm?
No, so they're not.
Is it 10 grand a house?
Nope.
Oh, commercial
What?
10.
So commercial fees are based on the meter size, and then residential homes would be on the number of bedrooms, or it's based on the number of bedrooms and whether or not you're in a single family home, a duplex, or a townhome, those types of things. But right now, Tam's Farm, Oakstead, and Olive Prairie Ridge we are not collecting those fees because of the contributions that Crown made to the village. So it's kind of like, almost like a.
That was in the developer agreement.
Yes.
The Crown gets to keep those fees.
They get to keep the fees.
They're still added into the construction. They're using them as a recoup, what they hope to pay.
Right.
There's
They're
a
basing the sale of their land.
rather detailed explanation of that in the Crown email that was sent to you on Friday. For the next board meeting. 16.
Questions on the water construction fund? Okay. Then we have a sewer construction fund, again, a small tap-on fee. This includes some expenditures only for Route 72, because there was no construction related to, or no sewer construction related to, obviously, the north-south water main connection. And then there is a transfer in that's shown in here which is related to the closure of Fund 41, which we'll get to in 1 second. Any questions with respect to that? Okay. And then we have a wastewater treatment plant expansion fund that was from 20 plus years ago. And there is a positive fund balance in that account, but like there's actually like a checking account. No, there's money allocated to this fund in the amount of $7,000, which is never going to be used for wastewater treatment plant expansion in this form, because it was related to the prior project. So I'm simply transferring that out and idling this fund, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay. And then we're on to special revenue funds. These funds are used to collect monies for a specific purpose. So, not sure why oh, there we go. Let's see if I get this a little bit larger for you. The first one that we will like to discuss is the TIF fund. So we recently received the most current updated TIF increment information with respect to the TIF. The Stanley building is on ground that is in the TIF, and that is helping tremendously with the amount of increment that the village is receiving. So I estimate that probably I was very conservative, like at 98% of my really rough calculation, that we will be receiving $208,000 in TIF revenue this coming collection season this summer. As you know, the TIF fund is currently in the negative, so we have been transferring over the last several years monies from the public use fund to help repay or eliminate the negative fund balance in this account. We get a management letter comment for this every single time. So we're going to continue to do that.
Lori, just to remind everybody that the TIF funds were used for infrastructure work, primarily at Buckeyes, north of the tracks, and then the two loans, the two grants.
Does that put us with that money, I mean, for making the payments?
Yes, so right now, if you look at the bottom line, we're actually going to have revenue in excess of expenses. But please keep in mind that this bond had, I'll call it escalating payments. So while we were paying $25,000 and $30,000 in the most recent past on, for principal on this particular bond, the payments go to over $200,000 over the next several years. So we need to bank this money to continue to make the payments and have money hopefully sufficiently to fund the bond payments. That's what it's really designed to do, is to pay for that infrastructure and then also offer to individuals such as the Copper Barrel who received TIF assistance, grants for improving their properties, and it just hasn't worked that way.
And there were only two grants for that purpose. Randy
Ross's.
and the Copper Barrel. I think it's 120,000 total. But all the investment that the village has made downtown and the SADA grant program and all the continuing investment that private people are making downtown, that will all contribute to the TIF. And eventually, we're also trying to look at all the properties in the TIF area, which goes in the industrial parks. Lori said that the Stanley building is a huge impact. If we could get another big building built in there, it would be great. And we have a couple properties right now that we think are available, and a couple people looking at those potentially could do tear downs. So that could be a nice help for us. So we're really focused on every property in the TIF, trying to see what we can do to improve the property value, including working with the assessor's office to make sure, if you recall, those two people signed agreements that they would not protest their taxes.
I was gonna ask about that. Can the assessor, once that agreement has been shown, go back and readjust previous assessments based on their agreement that they signed? with
Yeah, I
the
can't answer that. What I can tell you is, I can't tell you what her authority is, but what I can tell you is that when we met with her close to a year ago now, we invited her, let's say strategically, to be the public member of our TIF committee. And so she attended the meeting. And after the meeting, we went and met at her office, and Josh and I did. Lori was on the phone with us, and we talked through some of these properties, and some of these properties are still valued at pre-2015 amounts. So I think we're making progress gradually, but it's, you know, the assessor has a job to do, and it's not our role to tell them what to do, but we can make them aware of things that have happened and encourage them to keep an eye on. So that's what we do. And we're continuing to, like I said, look for opportunities to continue to increase that.
Is the property that's getting built, the storage facilities, is that within the TIF district or is that just, that's
No,
not?
unfortunately, that's not. Okay.
When's the bond paid off? What year?
Um,
Yeah, we like 10 years out, 5 years out.
2041 or something.
no, it's not that long.
Is it longer than?
It's less than 10 years, I would
Okay,
say.
longer than likely to,
Yes.
a little longer.
No, it matches.
Yeah, so I think we have 20,
7?
2030, I think. Yeah. So we have 6 or
Yes.
7 years left. Yeah.
But you're saying that this year the payments balloon up?
So they escalate over time.
Okay,
We've paid $25,000 and $30,000 in the, towards the beginning of those. And then it does increase. I didn't bring that with me, but I can have that for the next one.
that's okay, that's
Yeah.
okay, but it gives me an idea, so like last year or this year, then we're paying, what, 126,044. I'm sorry, that's income then. We're paying, like $60-some thousand, and then, but we're gonna be getting 208,000 in, is what you're thinking. Okay.
Yes.
This is maybe the first year where we've got.
Positive.
And that's a
And it
significant,
will probably only last 1 or 2, maybe 1 year, because then these payments are gonna be in again.
but we're gonna bank that, as you said, so.
Yes. Yep.
And I think Lori said we're gonna bank it and hope that that will be enough. for those payments.
Yeah, because every 6, you're talking, yeah.
And if we can get, additional, EAV to create additional, income, whether it be through a building of a new building or improvements to existing facilities, that would help as well.
And this is where you'll recall that there's been a lot of talk with IML and other government groups, Metro West, about TIF legislation. There've been a lot of legislators trying to eliminate TIFs, minimize TIFs, restrict TIFs. We could also get an extension on our TIF, which would give us longer to continue to receive 100% of the property taxes. So I'm going to say that probably by next spring, we're probably going to ask our legislators to introduce a bill that would extend our TIF. Even though the legislator from Arlington Heights, she introduced a lot of the legislation limiting TIFs, she also introduced a bill extending the Arlington Heights TIF. So they got an extension on their TIF. I think she was the same sponsor. It is possible, but the legislature has to by name extend your TIF. And I think we will be asking the board to ask our representatives to do that for us.
And if we do end with a positive fund balance at the very end of this, then the monies, can be returned to the taxing districts that are essentially agreed to hold their amounts at the level they were when the TIF was created.
No talking about before. I just wish my house hadn't been reassessed for 8 years. Buildings building in 2015 seems a little ridiculous.
So maybe what I said confused you.
No, Mr. Hedges,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Hedges shared that there are still some commercial properties and it's being addressed, which is good to hear, but had not been reassessed.
So I didn't
since
say they hadn't been reassessed.
Or not.
Just the value hasn't.
The value hasn't.
It was up here, it came way down and it's kind of crawling back.
They have a trigger though, when a house is sold, the assessor, they get a trigger to go reassess it.
Right, but they also get all of our permits, so anytime there's improvements, they get a copy of those permits, and that's supposed to trigger an increase.
Right, and she sat here at one of our meetings and said that's not true. And I knew that was a lie, because that's the whole reason of permits.
Any questions with respect to the tip? Okay,
Oh, we only have the one TIF district, right? It's
that's
not-
accurate.
Okay.
You may have seen communication that one of the developers requested that we look into a tip up north, but it was not out.
The next fund is, the hotel motel tax fund. This has been kind of up and down, pandemic times. So I'm kind of holding the income very similar to the projected income for 2023. And then we do have the same requests from Coon Creek and the Chamber. As you know, any activities that, any groups that were to receive any hotel motel tax, they need to encourage overnight stays in our hotel, and tourism in the village, if you will. I did put a placeholder in there for the Historical Society. They have not made a formal request, for the budget purposes, but I'll eliminate that line item if that's not included.
Do you have, what past, account, in that account, what the past balances were? Because for years we ran around 80,000.
Yeah, so that has been, reduced quite a bit,
Mhm.
but yeah, I can.
And I will let the finance committee know that for decades, Coon Creek got under 10 grand.
Well, I was just gonna,
And the one year that COVID was here and Coon Creek was canceled, the following year, they came and asked for the year that they didn't have it, money, and the following year, hence the 19 grand. So the board will have to address this because that's entirely way too much. And I know you sit on Coon Creek. I sat on it for 7 years. 19 grand is absolutely obscurely, outrageously too much.
yeah, I was wondering that too, because I know when I started on the board, it was 10. Then it went to 15, I thought.
It went to 14,
14.
and 4 grand of that 14 went to the advertising on the radio
And
station.
the only reason why it went up to 19, I thought at that time, was because they were having a really hard time fundraising, because a lot of businesses were still suffering due to the COVID and
So I think they got
sponsorship.
stuck paying some contracts that they were under.
Yeah.
Which is only $300 a year. So you guys are aware of that?
Right, but I'm just saying that I remember that there was a
National.
good reason why we increased, but I mean,
There were huge increases in expenses too. I mean, the amount that we paid for and don't ask me for the figures because I don't follow that, but the increase for what the rides actually cost. I think we're even looking at this year that the fireworks, what we did last year, we're gonna have to have a huge increase in what we pay for the fireworks just to have what we had last year.
Sounds like.
So-
Yeah, we increased it 5,000 when I was doing the books for Coon Creek.
Yeah, I mean.
So
it's-
they're gonna have to gear back.
It's outrageous.
You said,
When I was doing the books for Coon Creek, they actually increased the budget for the fireworks of 5,000. So,
There's also a significant increase that is being paid this year for security. Because with last year, the parking lot was just a disaster on certain days. And we were going with like an handy frame type and it just didn't work. And then we had people that were the Coon Creek had people that were doing the security that, oh, I left my glasses in my car and they're taking IDs. I can't see it. And you're just looking at them, they didn't want to sit. I mean, it wasn't the security that was needed on an event that big, especially on Saturday night or Friday night. So there's a significant increase in security this year. So some of those expenses they can try to fundraise more for, but they didn't ask for any increase from what they had gotten last year either. So they've left it even keeled. I think I would recommend maybe for Carl to come in, maybe kind of explain some of those huge increases I've alluded to, that he can give an exact figure, but he's not asking for more. So
do you want to spend budget in the next budget meeting or the board meeting?
you know what? I think the budget meeting, if we could get it done behind he could still come to the regular meeting, but maybe just to kind of explain, I would just say, fireworks, security.
He's gonna have to cut back in fireworks, cause at 30,000 in the budget, and he's asking for 19. That leaves 11 grand left in the budget, so next year, unless we have a good year on the hotel, he won't be able to get what he's been asking. But this 19, if you look back, this 19 is for 2 years. The 10, and then the year that they didn't have it because of COVID, he came and asked for the money for that year and the next year. So this 19 is for 2 years, not for one. He's got 10 every year for years and years.
Just a process or procedure question. I thought I remember him coming to present to the whole board, and it was a separate approval for sponsoring Coon Creek, that it wasn't just part of the, like, it can be a line item in the budget because it has to be budgeted for, but I thought there was a separate, like, discussion on, maybe I'm off base, but I thought there was a separate
I think
discussion
he did,
for
he came
just the
for
Coon
sure the
Creek
year that he asked
sponsorship.
for the two,
Yeah.
the 2
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
And since then, he's been sending in a letter. You know,
I
with
think
his.
he probably came in even maybe after the budget process was completed because it was during COVID.
But it's not a separate motion by the board, it's just
No,
part
it's
of
a-
the overall budget.
It's always been part of the budget. He may have come in.
That's what I meant by process. For some reason I thought we had discussed and either agreed to or
We're
not.
also becoming a little better organized, getting people at the committee level so that they make requests to the PR committee, this committee, Public Works Committee now, so we're just a little bit better organized.
And I think the festival is a wonderful thing. And so I don't want any comments to be like misconstrued as like, oh, we don't want to support the festival, but like that the festival is its own entity. It's not the village's thing. So we love giving money to them, but we just might need to scale that.
Well,
back.
there's other in-kind that we help with, right? We make sure we have extra officers on duty and our patrol, and we work with Flood Brothers to provide all of the trash. and-
The traffic setup, the road closure is all done free.
Yeah, so I mean, there are, like 19 is the cash part, but I would say in-kind is, I'm guessing, probably equal to that.
We'll be keeping track of that.
But and again, to Toby's point,
But
like,
we're, as we said earlier, we're hardening our public events, so there'll be more police presence and more
Mhm.
public works presence.
and to Toby's point, prior to the pandemic, it was it was half of that.
Yeah.
So I get it.
To your point, though, it's not, a discussion on a dollar amount for the cash value doesn't represent whether the village is committed to the festival.
Right.
I mean, it's not like we're saying, now we're gonna charge them for police and now we're gonna charge them for the. waste
No, and I don't think we should, but I think we need to scale it back to where we might have been.
And I think the chamber falls in the same boat. You know, we agreed to fund the chamber for several years and they're struggling, but they're doing really well now. I don't see their books, but I know the membership has increased. So I think that might be.
For years, I think it was right when you came is when we started funding the chamber. Before that, we never funded the chamber.
Well, and I wonder too, because for the chamber one, you know, in the PR committee request, part of that was for the events committee that our clerk is a part of to help fund some of that. A lot of those are chamber events or events with other municipal bodies in the community. Could this chamber initiatives or whatever be the budget line item to cover that rather than out of a general fund? And then it just be whatever that committee is wanting to participate in those, make it that event type sponsorship. So maybe it's not 6K, it's 2K or 1,500 or 1,200, whatever that line item was. But rather than coming out of the general fund as part of the PR request, it's now aligned to that chamber initiatives to help with those type of things.
Could do that. We've handled the hotel multi-tax separately because they have the requirement that they have to promote their overnight stays. So that's what both the Coon Creek and the chamber both have to demonstrate that they're doing that with their advertising.
Oh, and they're promoting the hotel as part of the.
Yeah, by promoting overnight stays, they're by definition promoting the only hotel we have in town.
Yeah,
That's why we got the radio station.
gotcha, yeah, okay.
Here is just because now that we brought up there's festivals and events. We had allotted last year money for our clerk to be able to use for that,
For just special events.
for those special events and
Yeah,
that things that
$1,000, yeah, $1,000.
has she used it?
A little bit, not very much. She bought the Christmas ornaments, kids were decorating, and we did the Christmas ornaments, they were actually a fundraiser now. So she spent a little bit of money, I don't know exactly how much, maybe half of it.
Because I think she has some bills that she's not been reimbursed for that she hasn't asked
Yeah,
for.
Linda's been guilty of that.
Right, so I, you know, and
Like all these decorations out here, she just loves all that
yeah,
stuff.
she enjoys it, but I mean, if there's something significant that she has purchased, I just want to make sure that she's getting,
We remind her that all the time. She's very generous. about
okay. So we're gonna then bring in Carl Palmisano
it.
Then-
And Jeannie. I think she-
and Jeannie, okay.
Or somebody from the chamber should be covered.
And then for Coon Creek, it would be, we'd really like to know some of the big ones, fireworks, security, the carnival. And I know even like with dates for the event changing was specifically because there was no carnival. There was nobody to have for that for certain days.
And I hope he's checked with the, quick, just real brief, I hope he's checked with the fire department.
Oh,
Because the
yes.
fireworks were launched back there where the hill, and half the hill's gone.
Right.
And by the end of this year, most of that hill's gonna be gone.
Yep.
So, and there's the houses back there.
Yep.
So where are they gonna light the fireworks at?
We've already looked into that,
That's what
so,
I'm wondering when those townhomes come in.
yeah.
It's gonna probably change things a little bit. And that meeting is tomorrow, I believe, by the way. The Queen Creek, logistics meeting with police chief.
That has been asked too, and it's gotta be so many feet, and so it's gotta be measured out, and it comes out that there will be no people living there at the time of Coon Creek this year, but there's still, you know, errands.
There should be some foundations, maybe even some structures coming around it. They'll have to come. That's being discussed tomorrow.
Sorry, Lori.
No problem.
Anything else then for the motel?
Have we had in any developments, discussions of new hotels coming in that could potentially increase that revenue?
I've asked several developers. One broker in the area has done some hotels in the past, so he understands the formulas. It's a formula, just like the hardware store was a formula. We try to get the hardware store here. So it has to give traffic counts and all those sorts of things. And we don't qualify. They just built a new, is it Hampton? Pardon me?
Hampton Inn.
On 47, because that interchange is getting a lot more traffic than ours. But
Then the truck stop at 20.
when it comes to that type of traffic. And as far as I know, they were going to set us by 100. I've been told by brokers that we just don't meet the requirements. I did work for a company one time that owns several hotels, so I got to know a little bit about it. One of these days I could try and go on a recruiting effort. You have to call the people who own them. They're an individual usually. I know 5 or 6 different brands, usually with the same overall company. But you get to talk to one of those people and understand what would cause them to invest in your community. Right now, it'd be wonderful. You just get the current property to upgrade. Maintenance is done.
And that would
Paint the
be
front of the.
a very
of the
appropriate
hotel.
use of these
It's
funds.
2 different colors where they replaced
I'll
wood.
bring it back to them.
Yeah, the grant for them to repair their hotel would be as part of the intention of the legislation. Not that. In fact, we've had very little contact. I've been trying to reach him about some other business, that Arrowhead Business Park has a business association. It's kind of difficult.
Okay, Road and Bridge.
Road and Bridge is our next special revenue fund. We received monies diverted, if you will, from the property tax levy of the township road district. I estimate that to be at 128,000 and change this coming year. And then we are currently evaluating projects with Whitetail Circle, Kelly Road from Harmony to the end of the jurisdiction, and Duchess Lane being on our priority list. You'll notice, I'm sure, that the construction is estimated to exceed the budget for this fiscal year. And we will be bringing on March 16th a proposal to resurface Centennial Drive.
Right.
Yeah, current year budget. So that's what's leading to that, large overage, a known use of, or a known, expense in excess of budgeted funds. Not only have construction costs gone up, the reason why we delayed is it was just too much to have State and 72, Olive, State Street, and then, that major thoroughfare, I would call it, torn up this past summer. So we'd like to get that done before April 30th if possible.
And they've been told as soon as it's approved on the 16th, they'll have it around it. So expected.
And 135 is just an estimate. As I said, we're currently evaluating the projects. Whitetail Circle will be expected to be much greater than the $135,000. So we may hold off until we get another year of tax receipts in order to pay for that. Any questions? The next special revenue fund is motor fuel tax. This fund is received from the state on a per capita basis. Our revenue expectations for this particular year did not match the budget, solely because the Department of Transportation was very slow to adopt the census change. And so we did not get 100% of the allocation for our 7667. We got it on the 5563 instead.
And because it took them so long, where did that money end up going?
To other communities with larger populations, not us. This year, I used 98% of the Illinois Municipal League's per capita estimate, and we are currently receiving at that 7667 number, so I used that. These funds are invested at Illinois funds and doing really well, so we have investment income estimated at $25,000. The construction that is included in here would be some preliminary work for the Rin and Park project. And then our major expenditure out of this particular area is ice control, estimated at $250,000. We have requested 2,200 tons of salt for next state fiscal year, so from July 1 through June 30th. And the salt bid is currently out for bid, so we don't know exactly what the price is, but this $250,000, that's just under our cost from fiscal year 2015, which was about $114 a ton, which is a lot. So we feel like we've got that covered. And then we must purchase at least 80% of our request and can purchase up to 120% of our request in case we have a lot of snow and need for salt next year. Any questions with respect to that?
What did we change where investment income was budgeted at 150, but we ended up at almost 25?
Yeah, so that wasn't a very good estimate.
I was just gonna say bravo with the pension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe whatever we invested that into,
Yeah.
pension, police pension.
Share with us so we can.
Right, yeah, that was just a very poor guesstimate, but honestly, over the course of time, investment rates have really gone up. And it's essentially like a mutual fund.
Okay.
It's, like I said, it's Illinois funds, they're held at US Bank.
So is it safe to assume that this fund has a pretty healthy? fund
It does have a healthy balance. So we generally save these things for large road projects that require engineering. So anything that's done, this is IDOT controlled money, if you will. They give us approval to utilize it. So like if we had a giant resurfacing, $500,000 project, we would definitely use these funds. But again, like for a simple, mill and we call it mill and overlay. that doesn't require extensive engineering. It's just best to use like road and bridge or transportation funds for that
Because
purpose.
scratch and patch.
There you go.
Mhm.
Any questions with respect to that? All right. The next section are capital funds. These are used to collect monies for specific capital purchases. So our first capital fund is the equipment replacement fund.
We got SSAs.
Oh, you have SSAs next, sorry. Let me go to that. Oh, boy. They're on a different sheet of paper. Hold on. Oops. Let's see here. Where are my SSAs? Sorry, I just skipped that last one. There we go. So this accounts for the levy and expenditures for the maintenance SSAs that the village takes care of. We've done some recruiting. So I believe that we will be able to hire a part-time individual to assist our foreman of fields and forestry that also does a lot of this work. The levy information is in for the revenues. So those were the levies that you agreed to for this coming fiscal year. And then with respect to the expenses, the village charges $14 an hour for the personnel that are used to provide the labor for the maintenance SSAs, and any amounts above that are charged to the street department.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember in the SSA levy meeting,
Yes.
I see the one that went up significantly, but I thought there were a couple that we had to actually have a hearing about because the percentage increase was higher than what we could just pass. And outside of SSA 7, every one of these is going down from what's projected this year for revenue.
There were, so they're going down, many of the levies were held at the same amount. And so I'm using 98%, which gives you like, like even if it's held the same and I'm using 98% for collection rate, then it appears to be going down. I'll double check on that to make sure that I have the
So I thought there were-
right revenues. There were, I believe I think there were 2 or 3, maybe a maximum of 3, and one was right. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll double check on that. It looks wrong to me now that you say that, because I don't know what happened to my spreadsheet, the budget and the budget for last year are exactly the same, and that's not right. Right, 52,053 is the same. Okay, so that being said, I will adjust that accordingly. I know that the personnel services has been updated, so that I feel is going to be okay. And then I'll double check that as well. And then I definitely have plugged in the expenses that are projected to be incurred for fiscal year 23, as well as the planned expenditures for fiscal year 24. And as you know, we have a plan to kind of dig ourselves out of the hole with respect to some of those that are taking extra maintenance above. Any questions with respect to that? Okay. Now on to capital projects. So the first capital project is the equipment replacement fund. And this is where we are accounting for the Tyler ERP project. We've made some great progress, but there is still a lot to go. We did budget the entire $140,000 in this fiscal year. We will not have expended all of that, so we are holding over the amounts that are estimated to be included in next fiscal year. And then you will see that $30,000 transfer from Fund 28 here to assist with funding this account. Any questions? No? Okay. The next one is Fund 4. This has the streetscape grant information in here. We are also expending some ARPA funds to fund that project. And you will notice that there is construction in excess of that which was budgeted to cover some of the projects that were done that were ancillary to the streetscape projects, such as the parking lot on Rin. And then we also had some additional expenses that exceeded our expectations with respect to being able to turn off water valves and those types of things. So that's all that included and accounted for here. And with respect to this fund, we may have some carryover into fiscal year 24. I may be able to adjust some of the expenses with respect to like paying Alliance our final construction payments and those types of things. Undoubtedly that'll happen because we'll have retainage. So I'll be adjusting that a little bit. We don't plan any new projects in this fund.
You know, use a year off, especially our businesses, I think.
Any questions there?
Nothing's budgeted then?
I have not budgeted anything at this point. I'm going to be evaluating the payments that may be held over. The next fund is the public use fund. These are monies that are collected from new home permits in the village. We expect to have approximately 84 new homes or new units built. So that's reflective of the $137,000 that's included in revenue. We will transfer out to the TIF. And then this is a fund that will have revenue in excess of expenses. These funds can be used for the police department, village hall, and for the street department. So we're evaluating this in conjunction with the loan payments that are going to be due on the TIF bond with respect to funds available potentially to finance the street garage. Any questions with respect to that?
So this fund could be used to fund the street garage.
It absolutely could. Yep. So there's not a large fund balance. I will get that for you. You know, if housing were to slow down and we built the street garage, it would be troublesome to make a debt payment if we didn't have any homes.
We were anticipating last year 42,720, and it's at 108,295. Yeah,
so we've gotten, you know, like the townhomes have been huge for us, and Lennar in Tam's Farm has well exceeded our expectations for their construction of new homes up there.
Okay, even though like looking at the reports, we're like in a lull right now, and what is it, December, January, February, but
Actually, we just had a big,
This last month, we picked back up what I would call our spring construction season.
that makes me happy. It was a little nervous seeing the numbers as low as they were, so.
The Lennar discussion, you know, where they're building smaller homes, I think is appropriate, like to fit, you know, a certain size family and, you know, demographic into those homes. But they're being very successful selling the large homes that they have up there right now.
Okay.
And they're providing a lot of incentives to that.
So we're going from 42,720 to 137,424.
Yeah.
So we're expecting even an increase from what we already have right now.
Right.
Okay.
So the big difference, I think, is, every time we tick off a, townhome building, it's like, either 5 or 6 units generally. So there are a couple smaller buildings in the rental. There are 2 buildings with only 4 units, but otherwise, yeah, it's helping a lot.
And we don't get the impact fee until they get occupancy.
No, we get it upon, applying for the permit.
Okay, so like all of that, where they've already started construction,
So that is just grading,
so they
like,
haven't applied for any of that.
not in the rental place yet, but up, off of Kelly Road.
Right, and if the one, right,
Yeah.
where we were talking before could be an effect on concrete.
Yes.
We have a pre-con meeting with them next week, so I expect Peter Horton to be coming in for permits soon.
Gotcha. And you would expect that to, is that part of the 137?
It is,
So we
yes.
don't expect that to hit till May.
Correct.
And Laura, can you repeat again what you said earlier about the dependability of this revenue? If we were to use it to finance bonds or any, say the public works garage, the difference between this and a fee that's automatic. It's a good idea, but if we have a special use, excuse me, use a special fund, what's it called, alternate fund, non-alternate?
Alternate fund revenue.
Alternate fund revenue. We still have to back it up with a general obligation of the village. So if those funds were to, if that fund was underperform what we projected, we would have to use general fund revenue to pay for it. So something, certainly something to consider, but there's a little bit of risk. Right.
When I first came here, it was after the, Great Recession. There were probably 3 years where we built 1 home.
That's-
Well, I mean, you had developers going bankrupt,
Yeah.
not doing anything.
Okay. And then this other capital fund is, so this Fund 33, sanitary and stormwater improvement, was the capital fund used to record the expenses of the improvements that were done on State Street with the ARRA, American Rescue and Reinvestment Act funds. So we had a bond that was issued, and it's completely been paid off at this point. But this fund was used to record the bond proceeds and the construction costs of that project. We ended up with a negative fund balance, and this fund is no longer being used. It's kind of being idle. So here's where I propose a large percentage of this were sewer improvements that were done downtown. This is the other known transfer that will happen to close, or at least idle this fund with a 0 fund balance. Does that make sense? So there were your 2 pieces, the $30,000 for capital improvements to fund Tyler, and then this piece.
That was just a minute ago. You said it, we just,
Yeah, sorry, maybe it
but I remember the 115.
Yeah.
That's the kind of this.
Okay,
So in these type of funds, just in general, you can go negative.
so, yes.
It's an accounting function.
I didn't know if, policy wise, a fund like this, that's a alternate revenue fund that has specific uses is allowed to spend more than it brings in for those, to your point on the building. And being concerned that we may not have enough new construction to cover if we were to do that, and we have to back it up with general fund, general obligation fund. How we were able to go negative here without immediately having to bring that over from the general fund. It's related to the other, that's why I'm just trying to understand policy wise.
I would say that this
I get
was
this is like
a
more of an
very
accounting
poor
ledger move,
practice.
but-
This is just yeah, I would not recommend doing something
Okay,
like
so we're
this.
correcting something that probably shouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very helpful.
Our next one is transportation. This again is a impact fee that is obtained upon application for, issuance of a new home building permit. This again can be used for, transportation related expenses. So road improvements, we have used this for debt service and, on street related equipment. And, so our only, requested expenditure in this particular area will be an offsetting $137,000 that will be transferred to the general fund for that purpose. It's the exact same amount as last year, but it is, I believe I think I went dark because my computer must be running out of battery. That's related to, safe walks to school and something else. Can't think of it right off the top of my head.
But this year, we're not projecting to transfer anything over to general.
Correct, because, those expenditures are happening at, falling into this coming fiscal year rather than the expected last fiscal year.
So we'll be growing the fund balance by 194.
Right. The next one is early warning. Early warning, again, it's collected upon the issuance of new home permits. This fund is used to, fund the expenditures of our early warning signs, so it's a capital improvement fund. We are spending $9,969 out of this account for the, siren activation equipment that was, allows the police department to, without using the activation in their squad cars, they can at the PD set off the sirens. And then, it's been determined that, when the new homes are both built in Prairie Ridge North, that we are going to require a new siren. And so we're going to be having to expend that next year to make sure that we have, adequate coverage for all the homes in Hampshire. And that is expected to be out about $30,000. We just learned about this fairly recently. And so we're going to be utilizing the 5420 that is going to be approximately the fund balance available in that fund, and then having to, expend additional monies in the general fund to pay for a brand new siren, which we hope to erect at Mark's water treatment facility on Harmony Road. So that'll be in addition to the general fund budget when we go back to that at our next meeting.
So what's the total cost of that, the siren itself?
About $30,000.
30,000. So we've got 5420 here. and-
Yeah,
And the rest.
it'll be supplemented by the general fund to a great extent. And then the next fund is a capital improvement fund for Tuscany Woods. So back when, the original developer failed there, we pulled a letter of credit and completed the infrastructure improvements in the subdivision. That included the roads, the streets, the streetlights, all the underground infrastructure, et cetera. There's $60,910 left in that fund. And, it's proposed that we relocate the streetlight, that is at the entrance. What would that be? Romkey and 72. It's in the middle of the island and it gets whacked
Oh,
all the time. So, it's been proposed that we, put streetlights on either side, maybe with some bollards around them to protect them. Because people seem to go pretty fast through that intersection in the wintertime. So, we're still looking into the exact cost of that, but, I put it in the budget simply to avoid a, management letter comment that we've overexpended on that particular fund. So we may or may not actually get it done this year, but, it's in the budget for that purpose.
Is that an us issue or an HOA Tuscany issue? Or SSA?
So these funds have to be used for Tuscany Woods. This wasn't, that light was an original improvement. And so therefore, relocating it is an appropriate use of these funds.
Okay.
I can ask, this is just probably more of a police question than anything else. Usually if there's an accident or somebody bumps into something like that, as part of the ticket process, is that amount of money is assessed to,
It's not assessed through the ticket process, even if a ticket is issued. But like, for instance, the street light that you notified on the Hampshire app that was down, there was a crash report. Sometimes people don't even stop. If there is a crash report, that comes to me, and then we either will send it through our insurance. We will contact the driver's insurance directly. Most frequently, and even in this case, the dad of the driver decided to pay out of pocket. And so Dave provides a quote from the company that will replace the pole, that provides the pole, and then labor estimates to get it replaced. So.
because I mean, I can tell you that certain municipalities will include that as part of the fine and fees that get assessed when there's an accident, something happens and they hit it. Somebody falls asleep at the wheel or whatever, and it is on the ticket itself. And it
That
may
might be a local adjudication thing, but we don't have the ability to put those on those tickets, I don't believe. Because those are county tickets where they'd have to go to the.
Okay, for that particular
Yeah.
one then, okay. It was a great way to make money. I mean, I don't mean to make money because you have to replace
You have
the
to recoup.
items, but I remember just because I was a prosecutor and that amount would look there and you feel bad, to the poor
We
guy,
end up
but it
getting
was
it,
a
we
huge
just get
amount.
through an insurance claim instead.
Yeah. But it gets paid that way, but it gets assessed. So that's why I was thinking if a stop sign gets run over in the village or something, I didn't know if we assessed for that. So that's a no.
We do, we file a claim, and we collect from insurance rather than through the ticket,
Rather through the ticket holder. So it's not part of the,
but we hold it in account.
okay. This is covered under.
All right. The next fund is capital debt service fund. And this is used to account for the payment of general long-term debt principal. So in this particular category, we are expending essentially street fund debt to the tune of $47,808. We don't have any revenue coming into this fund. It does have a positive fund balance, so we're not, it's a known use of essentially reserves in this particular fund. Next fund, there's really nothing to talk about there, so I'm moving on. Is that okay? The next fund is the police pension fund. This fund is used to account for the accumulation of resources to pay our pensioners.
Wait,
So,
Lakewood Crossing.
Lakewood Crossing.
oh, did you?
School impact fee.
And then school and then.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened to the police pension fund then. It must not have maybe come out.
It's gone.
We can talk. Do you want to talk about this one on the, just on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about this one on the screen. So statutorily, our officers are required to contribute 9.91% of their salary to the pension fund. So that's included in officer contributions. And then our employer contributions are based on, and this is incorrect, so I'm not sure what happened. Maybe that's why it's not in your packet.
Yeah.
We do an actuarial study to show what or what is necessary to fund the pension fund at 90% at the year 2040. So that amount is incorrect in there. And then investment earnings are zooming up because $2.6 million has been transferred to the IPOPIF, the Illinois Police Pension Fund, Downstate Fund, that is being invested in bulk, if you will. So we really don't know what to expect. We know that they have the money and we have a receipt for that, but we can't even go online to actually see the funds in an account. They don't have like live online banking, if you will. So, approximately 3 weeks after the end of the month, we will have a statement that shows what our current balance is. Any type of earned income from, either interest or dividends, and then the possibility of unrealized or realized gains and losses on investment sales. As far as refund of contributions, in there, we have one officer that has the ability to take their funds out, so we kind of just roll that every year. And yep, with respect to pension payments,
Can you make that just a smidge bigger,
yeah,
I
sure.
can't see it.
I'm
please?
sorry.
That's okay.
Go over to the side here.
One.
We do have 3 individuals receiving pensions for the, the entire year for fiscal year 24. So that's reflected in the pension payments.
Which was not expected last year.
Correct. That was not budgeted
Okay.
for. So, yep. Those in tier 1, if they are over 55 years of age, they do get 3% annual increase each year, so that's been reflected in this as well. And then we have had quite a bit of additional other professional fees, which includes independent medical examinations, because we have somebody that, as you know, has a disability claim pending at this point. So I did not include disability payments because I really don't know if and when they're going to hit, so we may have to, the pension fund will adjust according as required.
Now, I know you've covered this multiple times.
Yep.
The employer contribution, when we moved from IMRF to this new state mandated fund, we were not able to transfer our banked amount to this new fund, correct? So we're still playing catch up, which is why it's so high.
Correct. The employer portion during the window where we transferred, the employer contributions stayed at IMRF.
So then is our IMRF still overfunded?
It is. Yeah,
So
our
then in
contribution rate for
general-
IMRF is, I think it's 2.48% currently, which is just unheard of.
Okay.
But
But we're making up for it here.
we're definitely making it work. This is about 47% of salaries.
And the idea is by 2040, that should then go away to a normal percentage rate. Once we're at the 90% or catch up.
Yes. So we've got a blended contribution rate. So that's all taking, into consideration, like to get us to 90% funded. But then, yes, depending, it'll be very variable and dependent on our current statistics with respect to age of the officers,
Yeah, and I don't mean by a dollar value, but an overall percentage, 40% of current salary is probably
Right.
also unheard of.
Yes. Yep. So we expect revenue in excess of expenses of about $479,000. All right. So the next one that you have in your packets is our custodial funds. Yep.
Can we go back?
Sure.
So we're expecting a positive of almost 480,000.
Mhm.
What does that, the fund balance, it adds to the fund balance, but that fund balance really can't be used for anything other than
Correct.
the pensions. So does it make sense that we hold that in a balance, or would it make sense to increase the payment to get to 90% quicker?
They won't let you do that.
So this,
Oh, they won't.
you,
They won't let you prepay to get to 90%.
oh yeah,
In
sure.
Springfield,
We absolutely could. That's not a problem, but this is including our contribution. So what, if you're saying like we should increase our contribution to $600,000, let's say, that would solely make this more, right?
I
Like,
thought that would make our revenue versus expenses less.
no,
So our
because this
contribution
is the
is
pension
considered
fund,
a revenue.
this is pension fund standalone.
Okay,
Yep, so it would cause additional taxing, if you will, on the general fund. So additional expenses in the general fund
Okay.
become revenue here.
so the contribution under revenue is basically accounting transfer out of the general.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not paying into a commingled fund?
We are,
Okay.
we're invested. No, it's not, it is a commingled fund for investment only.
So as our balance increases, our revenue that we need to send down there will decrease.
Yes,
In theory,
in theory.
depending on the actuary.
Well, for the returns,
The age of our
for the returns we were getting.
Yes,
I mean,
Yeah.
Laura showed you almost
Get
$100,000
that.
almost $100,000 more projected revenue from interest alone until we.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my mistake was I heard contribution as an expense, forgetting that, or not seeing that it was listed under revenue because it's an accounting transfer over.
yes,
That was my mistake.
yeah, and
I think it was the last board meeting, we were talking about this, where we had the two actuarials and Lori picked
Yeah.
a spot in between.
I'll get that updated. Okay, are we ready to go to the next ones?
Yes.
Okay, the next funds are custodial funds. These are our infrastructure SSAs, as I call them. SSA number 13, Tuscany Woods, and SSA number 14 for Lakewood Crossings. The fund numbers are reversed because Lakewood actually, it was assigned a number later, but it actually happened first. So essentially, these funds are showing expenses in excess of revenue solely because there are contingency funds held out in their account balances that are being drawn down a little bit at a time, if you will. So I have included the revenue from the levy that you all approved in December, as well as the interest, an approximate interest amount. These are just in here pretty much for placeholders. This does not affect the bottom line of the village at all. It's not funds that we can use or funds that we're technically expending, but we kind of stand in the place of the developer in this case. We collect the property taxes, turn them over to the bondholder, and they make the payments to the investors.
These are the type of SSAs that we don't do.
The county will no longer collect taxes for this purpose. And then that's SSA number 14 for Lakewood, and this is SSA number 13 for Tuscany Woods. The bond, obviously, the taxes are much less because the bonds issued are much less in value. Both of these bonds go to, the last year of levy is 2035, meaning the last year of collection will be 2036. And then these sub-funds of the general fund. We used to call these agency funds. These are reflective, I'm sorry, reflective of funds that the village holds for other governmental agencies or entities. So this, again, kind of placeholders, if you will. These, any residual monies that are held by the village at the end of the fiscal year are recorded in a liability account. So they do not affect the income or expense of the village, but they are used to demonstrate to the districts what we expect to see as far as new home construction for the coming year. There are no impact fees for the school district. That's fund number 60. Impact fees were satisfied by Crown Development in land contributions. So at the present time, we're only collecting transition fees. And then we're showing zeros. All transition fees that are collected, it's kind of a timing issue at year end, but essentially they're paid right back out. They do not need to request those fees. They're paid out on a monthly basis.
The Oakstead development had the same type of agreement, correct? So the land that Big Timber Elementary is on was donated land by grant. The school district didn't have to pay for it.
Honestly, I don't remember that part because the school was a last minute addition to Olmsted. So the school paid, I know that, I don't recall who bought the land. Have to check.
So the land donations, yes, the school actually did pay for the land at Oakstead. That was not a land contribution. But the land that has Gary D. Wright and the high school, as well as a site that's going to be in Prairie Ridge North, all accumulate to excess land contributions for school purposes. So therefore, it's not being collected at the present time.
Even in developments that aren't part of that or came after that. So like Oakstead isn't, that's not land for Oakstead.
It was originally, it was all part of the big deal.
Gotcha, okay.
Crown had already satisfied all those land requirements, and the school district cited the application instead of several others they looked at, so then they had five.
Understood, okay.
So if you just want to page through here, there are certain funds, like for instance, the fire.
Why are we giving money to the cemetery?
We just collected. It's not our money.
I know that, but I mean,
We're the keeper of a lot of funds are
why, the other funds I can see, but like cemetery?
taxing body. Just like-
That's why they don't get a transition fee, because you don't need it right away, you need it in the future. Hopefully. That one is a good example of, we're actually projecting to have send them more money than we're collecting, because as you recall, they came in about to improving the cemetery that's on Kelly Road. So they requested their impact fees and interest.
They also came in for doing some on the backside of Tam's farm.
That's
That's the Kelly Road.
Yep.
Oh.
And then the transition fee is a percentage that's relative to whatever their tax rate is, correct?
So it's supposed to kind of mimic the 18-month period where you're not really collecting a property tax.
It's of whatever their tax rate is.
Is it tied to the tax rate?
It's not tied technically to the tax rate.
Because I'm trying to figure out why like the school district gets such a large amount versus, even though I know they're by far the largest taxing body in our area, and others are not even close to it, if it's not tied to the tax rate.
Right, it's not tied to the tax rate. Interestingly enough, the school district, like the State Board of Education, has this table that says if you have 3 bedrooms in your home, you are expected to have this many kids in the school district. So it's done on that basis, I believe.
How would the others be? I'm just trying to think of somebody that looks at the budget that's in the general public and sees like, I don't know, the park transition fee or the library transition fee that's utilized by the same homes are, I mean,
So much less.
like 425,000 versus 13,000.
Right,
They're definitely relative to the tax rates, they're just not tied by formula to it.
Gotcha, okay.
So they'll tend to be similar in rank, but not.
And they're set by the village in the developer agreement, right? So even if the State Board of Education says your impact should be X, the village can say, actually, this is what that impact fee is.
I don't think we can actually.
Or transition.
I don't think we can cut the school district's portion just arbitrarily with the developer. I didn't look into that. Is that your understanding, Mark? It's been a long time since these agreements were, I mean, you have in your email, the transition fees, all the fees for Crown coming up. It was on Friday and again yesterday, I think, on Monday. So those are all, and the amounts are being substantially increased, not per necessarily, but overall because of the number of lots. So I'd have to look into where they originated and what where the authority comes from, but I don't believe we have the authority to reduce any particular. I don't think we have the authority to reduce the school's portion, but I'd like to look at that.
Okay, that's why I was curious about it, because it looks like it's somewhat tied to a tax rate, but if I was and I am a normal citizen looking at this, I'd be like, wait a second, why does one taxing body get so much different than another, and the cemetery, for example? So,
They don't do very much.
no, but their tax rate is, I think, the lowest outside of the airport district that doesn't tax anything.
Can I ask just for clarification on the library impact fee? For the income coming in, the two Huntley line items in there?
So, Lakewood subdivision, actually, the majority of the subdivision is in Huntley Library District. And, so it's split,
Yeah.
like there's a line down the center. And, Oakstead is in the same situation when the homes are being built in there. We'll have to be very careful to make sure that we're, while the fees are the same, we have to make sure that we, account for them separately so that, we're sending it to the right place. We've not, had any, Huntley, income since Lakewood was finished.
There's parts of Lakewood where one house is, your kids go to the Huntley School District, the house next door, you go to District 3.
Yeah, because two different townships.
Same thing, yes, same thing with library and,
Fire protection.
fire is split between Huntley and Hampshire as well. Interestingly enough, Oakstead will be split between Hampshire and, Pingree Road.
Right.
A small percentage of them are Hampshire voters in elections.
Yeah, the line is really
Yeah, it's kind of funky.
very short on the Hampshire side. A lot of it's in Rutland Township. Oh, battery's running very low.
Oh, that means for you.
No, I'm fine. That's the last of, on my little speech here. So, yep, park, fire, cemetery, and then the last one is the township.
With the strategies with the development agreements, if a taxing body passes a referendum that does change their tax base, let's say, does that impact the transition fee since it's 18% or 18 months of what, or because it's not tied to a percentage, then it really doesn't matter what their tax base is, it's what it was at the time? Okay, so I know many of our 20 plus years ago.
Pardon me?
I said, I know many of these agreements were signed
Right.
20 years ago or 18 years ago or whatever they were.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Lyons? that
I
you
do
need to? Does anybody else have any questions or anything? Any announcements?
Thank you all for 2.5 hours of tedious numbers, but it's an important process.
Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So,
Second?
second.
Okay,
I'll remind you all that Ms. Lyons will be on vacation next week, so she'll be missing our board meeting at the middle school. Now, I'm sure she's is disappointed by that, but she'll be with her daughter and bringing a new child with her.
Now I won't be able to watch because it's not.
No, there's no.
No.
I
That's
wouldn't-
right,
You know
never
what?
mind.
I wouldn't.
all right, we have a motion to adjourn on the table. All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:29.